Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. My name is Joey. This is going to be my post-fight reaction to UFC 263. The main event was Israel Adesanya defending his middleweight title against Marvin Vettori in a fight that I felt left a lot to be desired. There were some fun moments on this card. I'm going to go through the entire pay-per-view main card, give my reaction to all the fights. If this is the first time seeing one of my videos, make sure you subscribe. Uh, Israel Adesanya versus Marvin Vettori was a fight that it wasn't the first on my list at middleweight that I wanted to see. I really wanted to see Adesanya versus Whitaker too, and I feel like a lot of people, that's the fight they wanted to see. But based on timing, Vettori got the shot. Whitaker had just fought Gastelum. He needed some more time to heal up and get a good training camp in. So the UFC said, okay, we'll go to the next most deserving guy at middleweight, and we'll go to Marvin Vettori. And Adesanya and Vettori had some history. They fought in 2018. The fight was relatively close. Vettori thinks he won, but I thought it was clear that Adesanya won, but it wasn't a blowout by any means. And this fight, I was really expecting, my prediction was Adesanya by TKO. And I really expected Vettori to pressure forward, try to take Adesanya down. And that's pretty much what he did. But where I was wrong is I really thought Adesanya would be able to catch him on the chin and put him to sleep. And Adesanya landed some great punches in this fight. But for the majority of the fight, it was him picking Vettori apart from the outside. I mean, he chopped that leg heavily in this fight to a point where I thought the fight may be stopped by leg kicks at some point in time. It's not like Vettori fell over or anything, but, he was landing heavy kicks in each and every round. In the first round, I believe it was, Vettori got a takedown early, but he really didn't do much with it. And Adesanya has shown that he has evolved significantly over the years. And even though he was able to be taken down in this fight, Vettori got a couple takedowns. There was absolutely, he did nothing with it. Just like in the first time these two fought, Adesanya was just able to get his back to the fence, get right back up, and in some positions, which I was really surprised in, there was a couple times I believe that Vettori got him down in open space, and Adesanya either crawled to the cage or he reversed Vettori. I remember at one point in time, I think it was in the third round or so, Adesanya got taken down. Vettori ended up on his back. He looked like, I mean, it wasn't super close, but he was trying to lock up a rear naked choke. And Adesanya fought it off and then flipped over and was right into Vettori's full guard. Then there was another time that Vettori got him down. Adesanya immediately reversed him, almost ended up in full mount. So Adesanya showed that he's very good on the ground. A lot of people would say, oh, you got to just take him down and hold him down. Jan Blachowicz was able to do it. Jan Blachowicz is a massive guy. He's a 205er, and he's a big 205er at that. It's not the same for Vettori, and I know a lot of people, think, oh, well, if Jan could do it, Vettori can do it. No, that's not the case at all. And also it showed tonight that Vettori, the takedowns, we always talk about, if a guy has great takedowns, it kind of freezes the other guy striking. And I think that happened a little bit to Adesanya tonight, nothing too crazy. But also when a guy has great hands, it's hard for a guy to get in on another guy and take him down. And Vettori, it was a lot of just pausing, standing in front of Adesanya tonight. He didn't press forward nearly as much as I thought he would. And to be honest, this was a piss-poor performance by Marvin Vettori. Towards the later rounds, it didn't even appear that he was trying. I talked about recently in the Robert Whitaker versus Kelvin Gastelum fight, Robert Whitaker outclassed him that entire fight. But there was not one point in that fight that you did not, as a fan watching it, feel like Kelvin Gastelum was looking for the win in that fight. He was going full force, looking for big shots. Vettori looked like he almost quit. And I thought that he would possibly win a round or two in this fight, but he had nothing to offer. He got some takedowns. I don't know how many takedowns he got in the fight. His best moment was when he almost got that rear naked choke. He had Adesanya's back, but it wasn't even super close. He pretty much got picked apart from the outside. Adesanya was just landing those leg kicks repeatedly. He was rushing in, pushing Adesanya against the cage, and just doing nothing with it. I said in my prediction video I thought Vettori would be able to maybe get a couple takedowns, but Adesanya had great takedown defense. And eventually, as Vettori tires, because I believe Adesanya has the better stamina, the takedowns were going to come harder for Vettori. And sure enough, in those later rounds, Vettori was able to push Adesanya against the cage, but he wasn't able to do anything with it. He wasn't able to get a takedown off of it. He wasn't even close. At one point, I think it was in the 4th round, he pushed Adesanya against the cage, was doing absolutely nothing, wasn't trying to do anything, and it was getting towards the tail end of the round, and Adesanya reached around and started smacking him on the ass. And every time Vettori went back to his corner told him, you lost that round. Vettori lost all 5 rounds. And I think, a lot of people don't like Vettori because after the first fight that he clearly lost, he claimed victory. He said, I won that fight, and blah, blah. He was saying it into the lead up to this fight. I don't know if he was just doing it for whatever. At the end of this fight, he was raising his arms and acting mad as if he won this fight. That guy is delusional. I think USADA needs to test that guy immediately because I think he's smoking crack. If he thinks he won that fight, there's something mentally wrong with him. He got outclassed for all 5 rounds. He secured a couple takedowns, was able to do absolutely nothing with them. And the majority of the later rounds, in his best moments, were just pushing Adesanya against the cage and stalling. There was multiple times Adesanya was kind of looking at the referee and like, okay, you're going to break us? And I know partially that's Adesanya's fault. He should be able to get out of that position, which he was able to do multiple times. But all you're doing is just holding him there, Vettori. He wasn't landing any strikes. He wasn't really even attempting a takedown. It's like he would sit there for a minute, minute and a half. And I think sometimes Adesanya messed with the ref because we know it. We've seen it plenty of times when a guy looks for a stand-up, looks at a referee for a stand-up, they're so unlikely to do it. They're like, nah, fuck you. I'm not doing that shit. I'm not standing you up now that you looked at me and you were begging for this stand-up. But Vettori had nothing to offer tonight. And I don't think he ever will have anything to offer for Adesanya. I know somebody commented on one of my prediction videos that Vettori was a far superior fighter and that the only way Adesanya was going to win was by a lucky strike or something like that. Somebody said that on one of my prediction videos. And I just thought that was hilarious because if you look at what happened tonight, Vettori has no advantages over Adesanya. I even think Adesanya is better on the ground. I mean, he was able to reverse Vettori multiple times on the ground. I know Vettori was able to get him down there. Adesanya should work on his takedown defense a little bit. But, for as many takedowns as Vettori tried tonight, there was very few that was, successful. And Adesanya, I don't know how much time he spent on his back. Each and every time, the second he was taken down, he was already looking for his path back to the feet. And when he was on the feet, he was kicking the legs, chopping the legs just heavily, just like he did to Costa. He was looking to counter as Vettori moved forward, which after a certain period of time, Vettori stopped pressing forward because he saw what was coming. He was landing some good strikes. He didn't land too much with the hands, but he landed some decent strikes. And Adesanya was also feinting quite a bit, and Vettori was biting on it. I thought Adesanya might eventually land a head kick and potentially finish him, but he missed. Vettori saw it coming quite a few times, ducked down underneath of it. The first takedown that Vettori got was in the first round when Adesanya was chopping those legs, and Vettori reached down, caught the leg, and took him down immediately. And I thought that might affect Adesanya. He might stop throwing those low kicks. Sometimes we see a guy get his kick caught and taken down. He's kind of a little bit leery to throw those kicks. Nope, Adesanya just worked his way right back to the feet and immediately started throwing kicks again. And they were affecting Vettori significantly. He was very leery to move forward. He just showed like he had... One of the things I thought when I was watching that 4th and 5th round, I said, where's that energy he had at the press conference? I'm your worst nightmare. He didn't even look like he was trying to win that fight. And I think it was the worst possible performance that Vettori could have had. Even worse than if he would have got finished in the second round or so. I think it was a worse performance than Costa. And I know that's saying a lot because Costa just got absolutely outclassed. But it was almost like Vettori knew he was going to lose and he gave up. He just had nothing to offer. The 5th round, and even in the corner, when he went back to the corner and his corner was telling him, you lost, you got to finish the fight. He just went out there and he did nothing. There was 10 seconds to go in the 5th round, and Adesanya's just standing there with his back against the cage, and Vettori's not throwing. And that was the story of the fight. There was multiple times where Vettori had Adesanya's back against the cage with his hands down at his waist, and Vettori refused to let go of his hands, which I think that was the best opportunity he had to catch Adesanya with a hard strike. And I know why Adesanya was doing that. Adesanya's takedown defense against the cage is so good, and we've seen that tonight. Most of the times when Vettori was looking for takedowns and it wasn't out in open space, Adesanya was able to stuff him. He was using the Travis Brown elbows when Vettori was in on his legs. And it was just crazy because it was almost like you could see the openings for Vettori when Adesanya backed up and had his hands down, was kind of, zigging and zagging a little bit. And Vettori could have just put a flurry together and maybe caught him on the chin, because when you're up against the cage, you only have two directions you can go, left or right. You can't go forward, or you can't really go backwards. So I guess you can go three directions. But you just have a significantly higher chance of catching a guy. And he just wasn't letting go of his hands, and he knew he had lost the fight. So I think it was a terrible performance. Again, I can't give enough, praise to Adesanya in his performance tonight. He showed that he has great takedown defense. He showed that he has salvageable, ground game. He was able to reverse Vettori. He was able to get out of the bad spot when the Vettori had his back. He was able to reverse. I think they were in side control, and Adesanya reversed to get in almost full mount and then get back to the feet. There was a couple scrambles where Vettori was looking for a leg lock, and Adesanya looked super comfortable in those positions. And then what I love about Adesanya is this guy, whether you like him or not, his personality, whatever, this guy wants to fight the toughest guys imaginable, and he's never looking for a way out of a fight. He wanted Whitaker, then he wanted Paulo Costa, then he wanted Jan Blachowicz, now he beat Vettori, and now he's calling out Robert Whitaker, which I think that's the fight that everyone wants to see. He called out Yoel Romero when he didn't have to fight Yoel Romero. So Adesanya, I think he's probably the most active champion, and I just don't know how you can't enjoy the guy. He wants to defend his belt. He wants to fight the toughest guys. He's not looking for some type of easy fight. And I think we never see Marvin Vettori fight for a title again. I think the UFC is really going to, show a bias towards him after this pissy performance, that he put on, where he just didn't even seem like he was there to fight. And I don't know if there was something wrong with him or what, but the guy, and then to claim victory yet again, apparently he was telling Adesanya right after the fight that he won the fight and blah, blah, blah. USADA, I would not doubt if USADA comes out in a week and say Marvin Vettori tests positive for crack cocaine, because if he thinks he won that fight, he's smoking something. Let's move on to some of the other fights. It's hard to even remember. There was so much that went on tonight. But the co-main event is probably my favorite fight on the card. It was the fight that I was most looking forward to going into UFC 263, and it was my favorite moment of this card. For the main event, you just had Adesanya really outclassing Vettori from start to finish. In the Nate Diaz fight, similar thing. So this was the best fight on the card, I think. Maybe not from a competitive standpoint, but just seeing a guy who, is just the nicest guy in the world, and just getting a win and just seeing how happy he was. I love to see this fight. So Brandon Moreno in the rematch against Deiveson Figueiredo, he beats him by third round rear naked choke. And that was absolutely insane. And I think what made it most insane was the fact that for the first 3 rounds up until the rear naked choke, he absolutely dominated Deiveson Figueiredo. He dominated him. All 3 rounds, he was able to take him down. He stung him with a jab early in the first round. And I think a lot of people forget that first fight in December, both guys took that on relatively short notice, so they didn't have full camps training for each other. We didn't get to see the true potential of either guy in that fight. I just believe that, on 3 weeks' notice, after coming off another fight, you can't be your true, 100% self. You need a full training camp for a guy. And Brandon Moreno is a guy that they said right immediately after that fight, he was already game planning for the Figueiredo rematch. And he showed it tonight. He was the better striker. Figueiredo didn't look like he wanted to be in there. And it's crazy. I don't know if any of you believe me. I picked Figueiredo. I thought he was going to destroy him. I thought Figueiredo was sick in the first fight. I thought Figueiredo was able to, when he was taken down, he was able to get up with ease in the first fight. And I just thought he would come in looking better in the second fight. So I was dead wrong on that. But I almost put out a video on Friday, so yesterday. I almost put out a video changing my pick to Brandon Moreno, because I saw Figueiredo at that press conference, and I saw Figueiredo at the weigh-ins, and he looked like absolute death. I know he cuts a lot of weight to get to flyweight, but he looked terrible at the weigh-ins. He showed up with 1 minute to spare and was just, he looked like death. He looked like Conor McGregor at 145. And it was just a dominant performance, Dropped him in the first round, was able to outstrike him. He looked fast. Figueiredo didn't even look like he wanted to be in there. And Brandon Moreno just outclassed him. And I think this goes to show, Brandon Moreno on a full camp to fight Figueiredo he's a much different fighter. And I'm so happy that we got this rematch. Uh, Brandon Moreno is the champion. And how can you not like this guy? Brandon Moreno just is the nicest guy in the world. So happy. Kind of remind me of Charles Oliveira winning the belt a little bit. The guy just seems, and he's a legit flyweight. He's not one of these guys sucking down for the weight advantage like Figueiredo is. I don't think Figueiredo deserves a rematch by any means. He got dominated. He got dominated in the striking. He was taken down. And, he tried his damnedest, Figueiredo did, to fight his way out of that rear naked choke. But he just was unable to do it. Moreno took him down, took his back, and just snatched up that choke. And it's just crazy because even if you picked Brandon Moreno to win this fight, I don't know how many people said, you know what, I'll take Brandon Moreno by domination, then finish. Nobody did, I really thought Deiveson was going to go out there, land the bigger shots, walk through Moreno's punches, even though he was fast and had good shots, and win the fight, eventually stop Moreno. But Moreno had other plans, and he looked amazing in this fight. He looked so fast. His jab was just, snapping out there so fast, hurt Figgy with a jab. How often do you see that? Last time I remember seeing that was probably Cowboy Cerrone versus Edson Barboza when he snapped him with that jab and then finished him right afterwards. But I don't know if Figueiredo will come out with a list of excuses. He looked like he took the loss pretty well. He was lifting Moreno up, carrying him around the cage. But he just had no offense. He threw very little, amount of strikes. I don't know where his head was at in this fight. I don't know if we ever see him at flyweight again. Maybe he moves to bantamweight. He says, I was killing myself too much to make flyweight. But I can't wait to see who Brandon Moreno takes on next. I think maybe we might see him against Askar Askarov. Cody Garbrandt's probably going to enter the flyweight division pretty soon. But after a performance like that, a guy who was in the UFC, I think he lost 2 fights. He was cut. Then he went out, rebuilt himself outside the UFC, won a couple fights. Then re-signed with the UFC, make his way to another title fight, and win the UFC flyweight belt. It's amazing. And I can't believe the UFC ever thought about closing down the flyweight division. Shame on the UFC for that. And I'm so happy to see what kind of star Brandon Moreno can become. Everyone's talking about he's the first Mexican-born champion. Mexico's going to love this guy. And his personality, I don't know how if there's anybody who doesn't like Brandon Moreno, I don't know what's wrong with you. Because the guy just seems like such a likable guy. And to put on a dominant performance against a guy like Figueiredo, who's looked unbeatable, 2 fights in a row, basically. I know the first fight was a draw, but to come out and then put on this classic performance, he was landing at will. He took Figueiredo down a couple times. I think Figueiredo, his brightest spot in this fight was he jumped for a guillotine, I think, in the first or second round. But Brandon Moreno dominated everything from start to finish. And maybe Figueiredo have some excuse for this, but either way, you got to respect Moreno. Comes out and beats a dominant champion like this in spectacular fashion. I cannot wait to see his next fight. Who knows when it'll be? He'll probably come out pretty fresh. So maybe the UFC will put him on a main event of one of these ESPN Plus cards. They used to sometimes put the flyweight champion. Demetrius was the headliner on many of Fox shows and stuff like that back when they were signed with Fox. And I can't wait to see who he fights next. I think it's going to be Askar Askarov, but we'll see. Let's move on to the first ever 5-round non-title, non-main event, Nate Diaz versus Leon Edwards. This fight pretty much played out exactly how I thought it would be. And it kind of makes me sad, and I know a lot of people are mainly going to be talking about that 5th round, but Leon Edwards outclassed him from start to almost finish. He outclassed him for 4.5 rounds. He was kicking the leg. He was taking him down at will. He was manhandling him. Nate had some moments where he pushed Leon against the cage and was kind of beating him up in the clinch a little bit, but it wasn't very often, Leon bloodied him up with a couple elbows in the ground and pound in round 3, I believe it was. But what everyone's going to be talking about is Nate Diaz threw that classic Nate Diaz 1-2 and hurt Leon badly. And for a second, I thought Leon was going to go out similar to Shane Burgos, where against Edson Barboza he got clipped and then his brain shut off like 10 seconds later. Leon was hurt so badly in that last minute of the 5th round that I think Nate almost thought that he was playing possum because he looked so badly hurt. It was like, that can't be real. But no matter what, I think Nate Diaz's stock's going to go up tonight. I don't know if it should or not. he was a punching bag for 4 rounds. And I love Nate Diaz. I know someone's going to listen to this and say, dude, what the hell? Nate almost stopped him and blah, blah, blah. But I hate to see Nate go out there and just get beat on for 4.5 rounds only to almost get a finish to lose by decision. It's just, I don't like to see it. You know, he was bloodied up badly. The eyebrow was almost coming off. He had a really bad cut in his hair, you know, on the side of his head. And he's just got beaten badly. You know, his leg was getting kicked out from underneath of him. The leg kicks were the story of the night for Leon Edwards. You know, he chopped that leg heavily and often. And Nate Diaz really had no answer for it. Nate's best moment was that 1-2 and with like 50 seconds to go in the 5th round. And I think Nate paused for a minute after he landed that because he was like, I think he thought it was too good to be true, the way Leon was hurt badly. And then finally he realized, you know what, wait, he is really hurt. And he started pressing forward, throwing nasty combinations. He was this close to getting a finish. I think if he would have immediately pressed him, not waited that 5-10 seconds he waited, I think he probably would have finished him because Leon looked out on his feet. He looked like I thought he was going to fall just like Shane Burgos did. Really, that's the first thing I thought of when I saw that fight. But Leon, I don't think Leon got the performance he needed tonight. Even though he won 4.5 rounds, he outclassed Nate. I think a lot of people were hoping he would get a stoppage here, you know, as far as, you know, the UFC. Build his name a little bit off Nate Diaz's popularity and the love for Nate Diaz. But at the end of the day, most people are only going to remember that 5th round where Nate hurts him. And that's a shame because Leon looked great in this fight. It was great to see him back and get a full 5 rounds. I'm so happy they made the fight 5 rounds. Leon hadn't fought in a while. He fought Belal Muhammad, but that was only a round. And it ended in an eye poke, and it was just starting to heat up. But we got a great fight out of it, you know, relatively. I guess if you like seeing Nate get beat up for 5 rounds, you liked it. So I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I wish it would have been more competitive, but Nate is just so tough and durable. He can absorb so many shots, and he's just still standing somehow. Leon landed some heavy shots on him tonight. You know, not as many with the hands. He landed a couple hard body kicks, mainly the leg kicks. But Nate was just, his moments were, and I know a lot of people love it, but he was taunting. You know, he was doing this weird thing where he's putting his ass out and then like just standing there looking to the side, and then all of a sudden he'd rush Leon, trying to catch him off guard or something, a sneak attack. I don't know what the hell he was doing. It was hilarious, but again, he got beat for 4.5 rounds. So what does that really tell me? Doesn't really say much. I want to see Leon Edwards take on Colby Covington next in the summer, and then winner of that can fight for the belt next. I would like to see Nate Diaz fight Conor McGregor next after Conor potentially loses to Dustin Poirier. I think that's the fight to make. It's time for the trilogy. At least neither guy's stock goes down after this fight. So another fun fight. I wish it would have been a little bit more competitive for my liking. But it is what it is. We got some classic moments out of it, so it is what it is. All right, so I'll talk about the last 2 fights on the main card, but there's not really much to say. The Maia versus Belal fight was absolutely terrible. I think Maia won the first round with some takedowns, but he didn't do much with it. And Belal didn't really do much. I mean, the fight was pretty much him just fending off takedowns. When Maia fainted on a takedown, Belal was almost having a seizure trying to defend it. And the fight was just uneventful. Belal wasn't doing much. Wasn't landing much. He landed some in the 3rd round. That's when he really started to land anything. Belal took 2 rounds to 1. And that was pretty much the whole entire fight. I don't think anybody's impressed with either guy. I think it's time for Demian Maia to retire. He looked slow tonight. He looked old tonight. He's 43 years old. I'd like to see him go out on a win. I thought he was going to win this fight. I thought he'd be able to get him down and submit him. But after that first round, he was too tired. He couldn't get another takedown. So let's talk about the last fight on the main card, which was Paul Craig versus Jamahal Hill. And this fight had some controversy because Paul Craig pulled Jamahal Hill down into his guard, immediately started attacking that arm, had like an arm bar / triangle, snapped his arm. Supposedly it's only dislocated. That's what the UFC's come out and said. But it looked like he tapped. He was waving his hand around in the air. You could clearly see his arm was in a bad position. And the referee was not even stopping it. And I thought he tried to tap. Well, I can't wait to hear from him whether he was trying to tap or not. It looked like he tapped to me. I would have stopped the fight. But the referee just looked at it. And at one point, I think Jamahal Hill said, well, you know what? If the ref ain't going to save me, I got to save myself. Otherwise, I'm going to die. He started throwing down. He was in an armbar triangle, had his arm dislocated or broken or whatever it was, and started throwing some ground and pound. Once Paul Craig realized the ref wasn't going to stop it, you know, Jamahal Hill's arm was flopping all around. He started throwing some heavy shots on the bottom, knowing he had Jamahal in a compromised position. It was a very weird fight. I can't wait to hear from Jamahal what he has to say about it. But I really think the referee missed that one. I'm not going to complain too much, though, because it was a tricky position. It was very strange the way it happened. And who knows, if he would have stepped in and maybe he wasn't tapping, maybe his arm wasn't hurt, we'd all be crucifying him. So who knows? But overall, it was a fun pay-per-view. Thank you guys so much for watching my post-fight show. That'll do it. I went over the entire main card. Make sure to like the video. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe. I'll probably be doing a live chat this Wednesday, so join me there. We can talk more about UFC 263. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.